Hello YouTube! Today on the Naughty Librarian, I am doing my mid-Smutty September wrap-up. After the debacle that was August and the reading slump that incurred, I was kind of worried going into Smutty September. I'm like, am I gonna want to read? Am I gonna like the books I'm reading? And you know what? Just because I'm reading like pure smut all the time, I've been having a ball. Like, I have read 7 books so far. So like, my slump is over. I'm back into reading what I want to be reading. Even if they're not like the best books, if it has smut in it, usually I'm not so disappointed. Like I think the stakes are just lower, you know what I mean? Regardless of the stakes being low, I still did read a bunch of books that I did genuinely really like a lot, so let's just get into all of the smutty delights. First category is urban fantasy / paranormal romance, and I read 3 of those. I'm going to start off this wrap-up with a reread, which is Burned for Me by Ilona Andrews. This is actually the book of the month for the Wicked Spirits Book Club. The live show for this will be in October on my channel. I don't know when yet because we haven't discussed it, but it's going to be awesome. Burned for Me is the first book of the Hidden Legacy series, and this is the first book by Ilona Andrews I ever read, and like I was obsessed. It's so good, like immediately. You know those books where you're like page 1, you're like, fuck, this is good. This one is like immediately compelling and fascinating, and you like the characters immediately. Like, they have this interesting writing style where I feel like they're masters of contrast, and I've mentioned that before in a video, but what I mean by that is Ilona Andrews, they basically can let a dramatic scene be dramatic and let a comedy scene be comedy. They're not trying to shove drama or comedy in places where it doesn't need to be. And that is an important, like, subtle distinction in a lot of authors, because a lot of authors try so hard to like shove as many jokes down your throat as they can, but it completely undercuts any dramatic build-up you're trying to accomplish. Like, you know what? If someone got killed or something very bad is happening to the main character, let that sit for a minute. Let us feel the emotion of sadness, because later on when you bring it back up with a joke, it's going to be even funnier because you have that contrast. And that is a subtle distinction that you don't always get in authors, but Ilona Andrews is like a master of that. They let things set for a minute before they go back up or come back down. So I really appreciate that. That's probably like the best thing I could say about their writing style. But as for the Hidden Legacy series in general, this has a really interesting world building because it is basically modern day alternate reality Houston, Texas. In the 1800s, they had this serum that was created called the Osiris serum, and it does one of 3 things to you when administered. 1, kills you. 2, fucks you up. It makes you warped. You're like a creature now. It doesn't turn out well for you. Or 3, which is what they're hoping for, which is it awakens any latent magical abilities you may have. So basically this was invented and given to like everybody, like so many people in the 1800s, and all these people developed all these like magical powers. And then they found out after, you know, a few years, oh, this is hereditary. Oh my. So now you have it modern day where you have all these like magical dynasties essentially. So you have all these like, you know, House Rogan or House Montgomery, and they're all certain types of magical users. So like they have like house warfare and stuff. They're like kind of like Games of Thronesy, but like in Houston. And this one in particular, we are following Nevada, who is an awesome private eye, kick-ass lady, and she is hunting down this guy who is a fire mage, and he is fucking shit up in a bad way, and she's gotta stop him. And then she is introduced to a character named Mad Rogan, who is also known as the Scourge of Mexico, because he destroyed a lot of Mexico in a war. Mad Rogan is also probably one of the most magically gifted individuals on the planet as well. So he's also kind of like a psychopath, but like not the worst psychopath? I don't know how to explain him. In this book in particular, they're showing him as like, oh, Nevada, you shouldn't want to be with this guy. But like Nevada's dilemma is that like she knows that in her head, like, hey, you're a psycho, but her vagina has other thoughts. Like basically her head and her vagina just don't agree. And you know, we've all been there. Sometimes you just want the bad boy, and that's kind of what happens here. I mean, throughout the series, you do get to meet Mad Rogan more and more and understand him more and more. And he does kind of have that mentality of black or white, Like, is this guy a bad guy? Let's kill him. Fuck that guy. You know, he gets kind of his thought process. Overall, you start to, like, kind of like, all right, well, maybe you're not such a psychopath in the end. They do a good job turning this character around eventually. This is one of my favorite books. I was so excited. We got to reread it for the Wicked Spirits book club. Oh, I'm so happy right now. So this is one of my all-time faves. And it is related to the next book I read, which is Sapphire Flames, also by Ilona Andrews. This is book 4 of the Hidden Legacy series, because now they're doing like a spin-off kind of, where the first arc of this series, the first 3 books, were all about Nevada and her story. This is about Catalina, which is Nevada's sister. So it's like a new story arc featuring a new character. And I didn't really know much about Catalina from the original story arc. I knew what her power was. She's basically kind of a siren. So she can sink power into her words and like control people's thoughts and minds and make them like love her and do her bidding and stuff, you know, siren. But that's about all I knew about her. I knew she was very shy and withdrawn before. So I was always like curious about her as a character. But after reading Sapphire Flames, I am legitimately obsessed with this character. You don't even know. I didn't think it was going to be possible to top Nevada Baylor as a heroine, because Nevada was one of my all-time favorite heroines. And then Catalina Baylor came along and I was like, I might like her more. And I was stunned. I didn't expect to like her more than Nevada. And now that like I've read this book and I get more of a sense about who she is as a character, oh, she is so fascinating and complex. I really like her. Catalina is also in the family business of being a private investigator. And in this book in particular, she is trying to figure out who murdered her friend's family. And, you know, it gets into some deep house warfare stuff. Like, it goes real deep and gets real bloody at points. But the thing about Catalina, as opposed to Nevada, I'm going to just discuss them as 2 characters because they're in the same universe. If there was, like, a war, okay, Nevada would be on the front line mowing down enemies, and she would get the big medal at the end for saving the day. But you know where Catalina would be? Catalina would be the general who planned that battle strategy. She'd be the person who, when the war is over, she's going to be still there and she's going to have to lead everybody. So in the end, I'm like, who would I rather pick a fight with? And I'm like, probably Nevada. Like, like Catalina will ruin you. I think she's much more conniving and she's smarter. She's not really a combat person. Well, I mean, she can fight. There's a lot of fights in here, and she does hold her own. But she's very different from Nevada, where she's basically more of a leader, not, you know, a hero, so to speak. And, oh, she kind of has that ability to be a little morally gray at times, and I love it. She's so fascinating. I could just go on and on and on about how much I like her, but that's kind of the point of the book, is her character arc and how she grows as a human. Her love interest we were actually introduced to in the original arc as well. His name is Alessandro Segredo. So he's already like this like suave Italian guy, and I'm like, okay, all right, I see you. And as you can tell from the cover, like, he's not just some Italian playboy, he's like the James Bond of Italian playboys. And it's a very fascinating dynamic they have. I want to see it develop. I am so fascinated by this series. Like, I want more so much right now. Oh my gosh. I didn't think it was possible to top the original arc. I really didn't. And then I'm reading this one and it's much more cerebral and kind of subtle things and like plotting. And it's actually better. Oh my gosh, I didn't think it was possible, and then I was blown away. 5 stars. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I love this series intensely, if you can't tell. The other paranormal romance I read was One Foot in the Grave by Jeaniene Frost. This is a sequel to Halfway to the Grave, which we also read for Wicked Spirits Book Club, and I liked it enough that I'm like, okay, like, I want more sexy vampires. Let's see what else is going on in this series. And so I started reading book 2. And you know what? Like, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for what I was going to get. And I mean that, like, in a good way. I gave it 4.5 stars. I couldn't give it a full 5 stars because I wasn't, like, amazing, but it was very good. So this one actually happens 4 years later. So there's like a significant time jump in between book 1 and book 2. The end of book 1 left us in quite a conundrum. We had Cat and Bones breaking up. Cat had to leave Bones because she thought that was the only way to save him. Sad tears. I wasn't accepting that ending. So I need book 2. And I like that they kind of like sorted that out really right towards the beginning of the book. Like, I did not want to wait for a long time for them to get back together. You know what I mean? Like, that would have just been garbage. So I like that they kind of immediately get shoved back together, and I needed that so much. Bones is like what sexy vampire dreams are made of. He is like a wonderful hero. I love him to bits. He's very supportive and also very sexy. Speaking of sexy, let's just get into the smut, because that's the thing that surprised me the most here. Like, I wasn't ready. Going into this, I knew I was going to get sexy vampires and some, you know, smutty delights. I wasn't prepared for the amount of smutty delights in here. Like, it was like Jeaniene Frost was just like, oh, y'all like vampire sex? Hold my beer. I was like, seriously, chapter 32, which is apparently infamous. I did not know going in that it was an infamous chapter, and then after reading it, you're just like, I've read a lot of smutty vampire books, but the smutty delights in them are usually just like kind of normal sex, which occasionally has a bite in it, you know? It's not necessarily super vampire-y. This one, she's like, it's vampires doing it. Like, they do some vampire shit. And you're not expecting the vampire shit level in this smut, but it's there, and you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, like, it's just a whole thing. Like, you're not ready for it. You're not. Like, just brace yourself, get a glass of wine, and settle in, because chapter 32 is gonna get you. But regardless of the smut level being top notch, I did really enjoy the story. It's always fun. They're kind of, you know, like, urban fantasy, paranormal romance, usually they're very goal-oriented. She has to solve a crime in particular. Basically, someone's out to kill her, and she needs to stop them because she doesn't want to get killed. I mean, it's a good reason to stop them, so it kind of goes down that rabbit hole of who's trying to kill her and her job, because she kind of works for, like, the FBI vampire hunter squad. So it's fun. She's hunting bad vampires. She's solving crimes. She's having smutty delights with Bones. I'm so glad they're back together, because I just like, it's like an OTP. I just want them together. And then they weren't at the end of the first book, and I was sad because it's not supposed to be like that. And then they're back together now. And then chapter 32 happened, and I don't know how to go on. But yeah, if you want a smutty vampire book, this is probably like the smuttiest vampire book I read. I was stunned. So, would recommend. Excellent. Next category is regular old romance. An historical romance I read was Counting on a Countess by Eva Leigh. This is book 2 of her London Underground series. I'll say going into this review, this is like a 2.5 star book. Like, I think I gave it 3 stars, but realistically, it's just not the best. But it wasn't so bad that I hated it. It was just like, things don't add up always. This is about Kit and Tamsin, and it's a marriage to convenience story. Basically, Kit, he's kind of a rogue with a heart of gold, and totally is. By the way, Kit is one of my favorite, like, historical romantic leads I've ever read. I like him a lot. He is a rogue. He has a heart of gold. He's got that going on for him already, so that's like already puts him in the top tier. But he's also very strangely feminist, and he's very smart, and he sees things how they are, and I like that even though he's kind of, well, a libertine, which is the nice way of saying manslut, he does genuinely seem to like and respect women. I mean, he does bang a lot of them, but he's not mean about it. So, I mean, it was strange because you don't always get that a lot in historical heroes. You know, like, maybe they actually feel that way, but he actually goes so far as to say things that are determinately, I like and respect women lines. I highlighted one. I'll just say it right now. So this is like the beginning of a smutty scene or whatever. He's basically like, I need to leave the room if you don't want to do this. So she says, will you lose control of yourself? He exhaled roughly. No, any man who says that he can't control himself is a liar. Men always have a choice. And I was like, oh, no one has ever said that. It is the first time I had ever seen a male character actually say that in a book. Because yes, I'm sorry, if my dog can control himself when I have food, then men should be able to control themselves around a naked woman. I'm sorry. Like, you have more willpower than dogs, usually. Right there, Kit warms my heart. Love him to bits. And then you have Tamsin. Like, I really wanted to like Tamsin, but, like, I didn't. Because, like I said, this is a marriage of convenience story because Kit needs to marry someone so he gets this big inheritance, and Tamsin needs a husband to get money so she can continue her smuggling operation. And Kit is a war hero, and he's very much against criminal activity. He thinks smugglers are criminals. He doesn't want to deal with that. And she's like, well, I need your money, so I'm gonna lie to you and smuggle out of your own house and, like, trick you so I can take all your money. But, like, she gets really offended when he tries to, like, you know, actually seduce his wife so, you know, she'll like him and want to give him money so he can do a project that he wants to do. But she gets so upset and she's like, oh, you just seduced me so I'd give you your own money? And she gets all mad and she's like, well, fuck you, I'm going to Cornwall. And it's like, didn't you marry him and be nice to him so you could take all his money? Wow, it must be nice sitting on that high horse you ride. What is going on? It was a bit of, you know, pot and kettle here. I really wanted to like her, but I just didn't. I know she, like, stepped up and she was helping a lot of people this smuggling operation because, you know, the village she was supposed to be in charge of is starving. So she's like, we need to do something. She did that and they made money and they didn't starve. So I get it. She stepped up to the plate, but she's also so wishy-washy of a character that I'm just like, how are you doing this for this long? Like, you're not very good at things. And she just kept bothering me so much. And then there's a lot of, like, decision-making in this that didn't make much sense. Like, okay, for example, Tamsin is nervous about being intimate with Kit for the first time. And Kit's like, oh, got it. We're gonna go to a sex club and you can watch like 50 people fuck each other. Like, that's his, like, solution to her feeling nervous about having sex for the first time, is to go watch a bunch of other people do it. I'm like, what? It seems like a leap to me, but I mean, it worked out in the end, so maybe he was right. But there's just, like, a lot of things that don't add up decision-making wise. I didn't really care for Tamsin. I didn't think their relationship was really built on something good. Like, I've seen marriage convenience stories that actually go well, and, you know, but this one is like they're actively trying to use each other for a lot of it, and I feel like Kit kind of is getting the shaft here. Like, I feel like Tamsin is using him and lying to him far more than he has ever lied to her. Like, he's never lied to her. He's just like, I want to have sex with you. You're a sexy lady and you're my wife. Like, you know, if, you know, the side effect of that is that she likes him more and wants to give him his own money, then... So I just feel like she's lying to him and then, like, making him into the bad guy, even though he didn't really do anything that was a lie. So, it was hurting me. But, I mean, overall, it's not the worst thing I've read. It's alright. It's like 2.5 stars, because I liked Kit, but... not the best. It's not her best work. Other romance I read was The Right Swipe by Alisha Rai. This one is very much a modern day romance. This is about Rhiannon, who we were introduced to in her previous series, Forbidden Hearts. And then you have Samson, who is her love interest. So Rhiannon is basically the creator of a dating app that's wildly successful. Samson is a spokesmodel for a rival app, essentially. And the thing is, about 6 months ago, before this started, Samson ghosted Rhiannon. Turns out he had a very legitimate reason for doing it, and he wasn't his fault, and he tried to make it right, but she made it impossible, and it's this whole thing. But they end up, you know, forced proximity. They end up kind of getting back together with each other, and it's very much a very modern day romance where I feel like these characters are very real people. And they don't necessarily make the best decisions all the time, but they're not making stupid decisions out of nowhere, which is a distinction. For example, Rhiannon has so many trust issues, And that's who she is as a person. And they show that a lot, like how she conducts herself in the world, because she is a woman of color in the tech industry. So she has to work twice as hard to get, you know, the same respect a mediocre dude gets. So you know, you understand where she's coming from. She's had bad past relationships, and she has a lot of trust issues. So the way she reacts to things makes sense for her character. Doesn't necessarily mean she's always likable as a character, but likability isn't really important because her character makes sense, which is more important than likability. Like, if she was just making wild accusations out of nowhere when she's a relatively well-adjusted person, then that would be stupid and I would get upset, and so you're just like trying to forward the plot with idiocy. This one is like, yeah, you know what, she makes bad decisions, but consistent with her character. So like I kind of like went along with it. And then you have Samson, who is a former NFL player, and his big like arc in this story is trying to raise awareness about CTE. I don't remember what the letters stand for, but it is something that happens when you have lots of concussive head injuries, and over time it like messes up your brain and it causes all kinds of ailments, personality changes, all kinds of bad stuff, and a lot of football players get it. It's been in the news. And basically, a lot of his family members have died because of this, because they were all like a big football dynasty. And he's worried about that, and he's trying to help other players not have that happen to him. So there's like a whole other arc of this story that I didn't know I was gonna get about like concussive brain trauma. But that's another side of this story. So it's not really the book I thought I was going to get. I thought I was gonna get a zany rom-com, and it really isn't. This is totally a drama. So the cover fooled me. Tell me this cover isn't a rom-com. You can't, because it's rom-com-y AF, but it is actually very much a drama. And both of the characters felt like real people, so I didn't really have a problem with, like, if they made a bad decision and I didn't agree with that decision, it didn't make me not like them, because I understood why they did it. And that's like something good about Alisha Rai's writing style, where people make decisions, yes, they're sometimes based on emotions and they're not the best decision, but it makes sense for their character. And that's like just good character building, really. Overall, did I love this? Arguably not. It's not my favorite book, but it definitely wasn't poorly written. It's very well written. I'll say that for it. It's just not my like favorite story in general. I mean, Rihanna is very much a tough cookie, and then you have Samson, who's enormous. He's like an enormous Samoan football player who is like the softest little gooey core. Like, I love how much of a teddy bear he is. So I really like these characters. I just, you know, the story itself wasn't stellar, but it was very well written. So I gave it 3 stars because I didn't know what else to do, basically. Did I really, really love the story? No. But did I like how it was written and did I like the characters? Yes. So it's kind of one of those things. So I do recommend, but just know going in, it's not a comedy, it's a drama. Last category is the unsmutty fantasy books I read this month. I read House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This was a Book of the Month Club book, and I'm an affiliate. My link's down below. Use the code GROW and you get your first book for $9.99. Sorry, shameless self-promotion is over now. Let's get back into the book. House of Salt and Sorrows is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, but with a gothic horror twist to it. And lately I've been really in the mood for like gothic horror, you know, like moody, atmospheric, spooky, kind of ghost-like stories. I've kind of been in the mood for it. And atmospherically, this really fits the bill. It definitely has an interesting world this takes place in. It's kind of like an island coastal community, and they have their own gods and their own like burial customs and stuff. And I really appreciate how the world was built. It's a very fascinating, interesting idea here. Also, like the setting, the plot, it's also very much kind of a ghost story. It deals with madness and ghosts, and like it's kind of like Wuthering Heights, you know, like that atmospheric moors, like, you know, that kind of setting where there's like mist and shadow and you see shadows over there and you're like, oh, is it a ghost? You don't know, and stuff like that. It's very atmospheric and moody. But on the other side of that, Wuthering Heights is also rather dull. Let's be real. I'm sorry. It's been out for long enough. Like, I think we're over it by now. That was the problem I had with this in general. I think I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars in the end because it does have some good things going for it. It has, you know, like the ghosty stuff I was into, madness, the idea of your brain is seeing things that no one else can see, and you don't know if you're right or if everyone else is right. Who's crazy? Who isn't crazy? Like, it's a whole question where you don't really know what's going on. And I liked those aspects of the story. The problem is, our main character, Anna Leigh, she's basically trying to figure out who murdered her sister, because there was 12 of them, and they're losing sisters right and left. They're all dying. Like, they are rough on sisters in this family. But she's trying to figure out what is going on. Is there a curse? What is happening? And the problem with her story arc here is that she literally does nothing. Really, like, I don't know what she does. She doesn't do any investigative work. She kind of just has things happen that she sees and is a part of, but she's not actively pursuing something. So there was not a lot of action to move the plot forward. It was just like, here's an event, and here's another event, and Anna Leigh is there. But it's like, what is Anna Leigh doing? And that was a problem I had with the story structure in general, because it wasn't very, like, plot-based. It was very much more centered around the atmospheric, moody, ghosty madness aspects of the story, but there was nothing like driving the characters forward necessarily. Which, again, Wuthering Heights. Am I right? Yeah. But I did end up giving it 3.5 stars. I liked the moodiness, I liked the ghosts, I liked the madness, I liked all of that stuff. But then, like, I realized I am reading this book through the guise of being an adult when this is a YA story. So I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, if I was like 15, 16, the target audience for this book, and I was reading it, would I really, really like this story? And the answer is yes. I feel like it's very much being catered toward a younger reading group, which is fair because it is a YA book. But as an adult, like, I see these things that maybe its target audience would not pick up on. So if I look at it through the guise of its target audience, I feel like it's actually very good. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4 because I'm feeling generous, but it's a 3.5. So overall, in the end, did I like it? Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. It was all right. The last book I finished off in Smutty September is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is part of a collab I'm doing with Leanna from Leanna's Library. That video is going to come out at the end of the month. Basically, Leanna and I have been friends for a while, but we have very different reading tastes sometimes, where she really likes grim dark fantasy and I like fluffy rom-coms, so we traded. I don't want to get too in-depth with this because I am going to do a video with her where we talk about this book. But basically, I did give it 4 stars, and it's very good. It's just I don't really foresee what the plot was. This whole thing felt like a prologue, so that's why I had to take a star off, because there's nothing really happening plot-wise. Like, what is the plot? What is the point? And there isn't one yet. But maybe that's the point, because it is grim dark fantasy, and I feel like Joe Abercrombie's like humor comes out in these twisted ways. For example, the humor would be like, did you see that? Isn't that the most fucked up thing you've ever seen? Oh my gosh, you know, like that's the joke. Where you're just like, I would have never thought that would happen. That's horrible. And it's like so horrible that it flips around to funny somehow. That's like the humor here. It's just like nothing is as what it seems. Always expect the worst. And I mean, it's very well written, and it's very grim and dark. So it's not necessarily a book I would normally pick up because it's very grim dark. But is it good? Yes, I enjoyed it. But there will be a full discussion of me and Leanna talking about this book on her channel coming up soon. So I'll let you know, like, on social media when that's going to be coming out. But did I like this? Yes, I did. Is it very different from things I normally read? Yes, it is. Alright, so far Smutty September is off to a very good start. I've been having fun reading these books. Nothing's really tragically disappointed me. I know I didn't really like Counting on a Countess, but like, it wasn't so bad that I didn't want to finish it. Like, I finished it. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. And that's kind of how I usually feel about smutty books. Like, sometimes they're not that great, but they're never so awful that like I hate them, you know? So This is just gonna be a fun reading month where I'm getting just all of my smutty delights that my heart could ever want. Let me know in a comment down below. Are you also participating in Smutty September? If so, what kind of smutty delights have you been reading? Also, have you read any of the books I mentioned in this video? Let me know in a comment down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!